Hi, welcome everyone. AI in Education, Custom Boss GPTs. If you are new, please check out the AI in Education link in the shared document. That is the bigger group that we are a part of, more than 2,000, I think like 3,000 people from around the world discussing the future of teaching and learning with AI, higher education. And there are many more resources in the meeting notes, so keep those handy on the side as we get started on the presentation. And we've been meeting and showcasing innovative educators and instructional technologists working with custom boss GPTs, which is a big umbrella category now for apps and anything with an educational purpose that educators themselves are building for their courses, for their assignments. And today we have Justin Horvath, Senior Instructional Technologist at Tufts University, and he's leading many initiatives to address AI misuse and also to integrate AI into teaching and learning in ethical, student-centered ways. He has spearheaded large-scale pilots on AI-powered writing platforms, custom course-specific AI tools, and supporting faculty in designing assessments. He has a background in instructional design and technology implementation. And let's welcome him and give him a hand and pass it on to you, Justin. Thanks for coming.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for having me. Here, I'm just going to pull up my presentation. All right. So first, I'm just going to introduce myself. I know we just did that, but my name is Justin Horvath. I work at Tufts University. I'm an instructional technology specialist. So that basically means I both do a lot of faculty development and service owner for a bunch of different tools at Tufts. So my talk today is based on a poster that I just did for EDUCAUSE, and we called it Faculty Can Create AI Chatbots With or Without You. How do you plan to support them? So I know that a lot of folks are like novices to AI chatbots, so it's always good to like just kind of explain what those are at the very beginning so we all have a little bit of a level set, right? Basically, they're just ways that normal people with just normal language, right? No coding required, can customize the behavior of chatbots and then share them with others, right? And we're going to get into more about how the kinds of things we're doing with that at Tufts. But I want to give a shout out to two other folks that have been helping me a lot with this project, Freedom Baird and David Grogan, both also at Tufts. This has been quite a journey, getting faculty first up to speed on building these, right? They are in some ways very, very easy. You've seen folks in these meetings like spin them up and have them do stuff in a matter of minutes, but then like, what are they good at doing and how do we measure their success at scale, right? That's what the three of us were kind of thinking about doing. So, and now we're here to share that project with you guys. Oh, wait, come on. There we go. So why did I feel the need to create a project like this, right? And the reason was that at Tufts, at least, chatbots were already being used in the classroom, right? There was a bunch of faculty, our AI early adopters, our technology forward faculty were out there giving these experiences to their students, right? But most of that was them doing this on their own. And many of them were doing it with unapproved products that the information security folks at my university were not happy with them using those because of maybe privacy concerns, both around the training data for that we're giving away training data to these AI tools, but then also just the normal old accessibility, privacy concerns that are happening with any kind of product, right? So we wanted to support these folks doing that, but then also the most important thing, right, was then to gather all that up and kind of understand what the faculty were doing, what was successful about it, so we can then pass that on to faculty in the future, right? So, there's a lot of obvious to many people affordances that these kinds of tools bring, right? They can, are there for students with a link to whenever they want them to be, right? So they can do a lot of different things and very customized things based on what the faculty wants them to do, right? They can give immediate feedback, can be very personalized, and also a lot of these things are there to help reduce faculty load, right? Instead of 10, 20, X number of emails the night before the exam, maybe these chatbots can step in and help some of that. But then also, probably people are just as aware of maybe some of the risks that we're talking about here, right? Like we all know, the misinformation and hallucinations, bias, and then also worry by both the faculty and, interestingly, by the students of potentially over-relying on these tools, right? Having shallow learning because they can just ask this chatbot that already has the information for them, right? So how do we make sure we can minimize these risks, right? And then the other one is also misaligned use cases, right? If we're thinking about, at Tufts, we are very much against, I can't say it's against policy. We don't have an official policy yet. We're working on it, but we are, none of our tools are supported for, like, say, grading students, right? We had other faculty that were interested in using chatbots to give our medical students advice for patients that were literally in the clinic right then and there, right? Those are, we are not ready to have those kinds of tools be given to our students, right? So thinking about how do we help faculty focus on the things that we think, at least so far, these things are good at, right? And just really quickly, some of the student responses that we've had so far, these have just been very highly rated. We're going to get into more of like how the students responded to specific uses, but really liking it, asking for more, but they also have brought up some of the over-reliance concerns, and then anxiety about their own critical thinking has come up as well, which is really, really interesting. Tough students are just tend to be like really thoughtful about these kinds of things. So this space for creating these kind of custom chatbots is like totally exploding, right? Some of you might be faculty wanting to do this. Other y'all are instructional technologists like myself, or other technology people, support personnel. And you may have noticed that there's just all over the place a lot of stuff happening here, right? So we use this tool called PlayLab. It's a really great tool. I highly recommend looking at it. It's really focused on education, all three of these along the top. I would highly recommend checking out if you're thinking about this, but we use PlayLab. On Micro is actually a tool written and supported by a member of this community, John Swope. He can't be here today. He said he's really looking forward to the recording, so that's awesome. I feel really good about that. But there's a lot of interesting things there. And then also in Boodlebox. Boodlebox is another tool. They have a lot of AI literacy tools at your disposal. One of them is a custom bot creator, kind of like this, but there's across the board, right? ChatGPT, Copilot agents, right? All of the majors, right? And then even these two over here on the right, in the past 2 months, we've had a bunch of, including these two vendors, just reach out to us, say, hey, we now have a custom bot creator as part of our offerings. Hey, would you like to get it? So, we felt the need to find a tool and help support faculty in its use, as opposed to having all of this kind of stuff out there in front of faculty. So they had to were kind of left on their own without the support of IT, our contracts people, everything else, information security, all that. So what were the goals? Why did we want to do this, right? I think the first one is pretty obvious, right? We want to empower faculty to do innovative things with custom chatbots, right? But the more important pieces of this, or just as important, right, is we wanted to do it safely, right? We did it as a community of practice, bringing all the faculty together that were doing this with us, right? So we would kind of help them with the skill ups. but then also raise a lot of the concerns and help them talk to each other about how they might address those concerns. And then we wanted to like capture all of that information, both their what they were doing, what they were telling their students, and then also how that worked in the end, so that we could build a replicatable process for enhancing teaching with AI, right? So we want to run this again in the spring. How do we get all that information so then I can have best practices? Because right now, right, any other technology that I bring and talk to faculty about, right, I have peer-reviewed papers, I have, educational frameworks that I can talk about. All of that is, we're all building that together right now, including, trying to figure this out in the project where I'm doing, right? So it's hard to tell faculty, well, you should do this, right? Well, we're building that as we go. So the story of this little project in kind of numbers, right here, we had first we like kind of set out a call and said, hey, if you're interested in building some custom chatbots for your class, come to this overview session. We had 48 people show up to that. Of those folks, well, there was also a few more folks added on after that, but we actually got 28 proposals, right? We did this as kind of like faculty had to fill out a form explaining the kinds of things that they were going to do and helping them to understand like what those approved uses were. Like we said before, plenty of folks wanted to do things that were either not appropriate, like say having students draw diagrams and have them, that chatbots give feedback on that. The capability of the chatbots just aren't there. Another faculty wanted to build a chatbot that would help the faculty preparing for the tenure track process and give them all the advice that they needed to get their tenure approved. We told them, that was, far too risky of a project to be used with an AI chatbot. And also everything we wanted, just because this is educational technology, my budget's to facilitate learning. So everything was in the class. We had 22 in the end. 22 of those folks were accepted. It's been a lot of work, a community of practice where we met at least once a month, and then asking for a number of deliverables that we're going to talk about as we keep going. So a number of faculty have dropped out. I said 17 when I drafted this. I think we're down to 16 projects just in the past 2 years. I think another person potentially is going to drop out, but that's just par for the course in something that's as intensive with everything going on across higher ed, not to mention their normal teaching duties, right? So, but this said, like, just with those, over 600 students are going to interact with these chatbots and kind of get us some feedback, so which is really, really cool. So you might be asking, like, well, what kinds of stuff were faculty creating? What are the kind of archetypes that we saw in here? We're going to come back to this where I'm going to talk about these bots specifically, and there's some QR codes here. We might actually have the chance for you to use those QR codes and actually talk to these bots if you want to, but we're not going to spend that much time on that right now. But these are the three basic chatbot archetypes that we've seen, right? The one we like to call the TA bot, right? This is a bot where they answer questions from students, right? They take the role of what had traditionally been a TA, office hour, something like that. You upload a huge amount of curricular material and then focus the bot on how you want them to answer that question. And then students just go in, hit that link, and ask them questions. These were super, super popular. You can see here some usage of just one of the bots in our neuro medical school class, right? These were second-year medical school students, right? There's 200 students in the class. We had over almost 1,000 chats. And most of the chats were between like 20 and 50 back and forth, but the chatbot, but the number one, the highest number of chats, there was one that was almost 800, 789 back and forth. So half that is the number of times the student asked the question just in that chat session. So
Hey,
Uh,
Justin, we've got a couple of questions
yeah,
actually in the
yeah, please, yeah.
Q&A. Okay, wonderful. First one, as you are deciding on what custom chatbots to use, how do you research IP, student data risks, to ensure that these platforms aren't using your data for other purposes?
Yeah, so that's the job of our contracts folks at Tufts, right? But I mean, I can basically explain to you how they go about doing that, right? So anytime we have any information technology that's put in front of our students, right? We have them first fill out what's called a HECVAT. If you know what that is, it's basically just a long list of ways that they are promising and explaining how they are securing your students' data and your faculty data, all your data. And then also, right, for any of these, if you are paying, you are most likely not submitting any of the faculty's or students' data for training to the bots. Almost every single one of these, but if it's a free account, that is probably not true. Anything you're uploading into a free account is most likely going in and training future bots. So there's a lot of that's the contracts that we have. They promise not to have our data to train those bots, stuff like that. We also ask like accessibility concerns, yeah, all those kinds of things. We have a whole team that does that at Tufts. Um, yeah. Any other question? What are some of the other questions that came up?
Yeah, we got one more question. Thank you, by the way, for that response. That was great. The second one says, I've created customized chatbots in GPT, Gems in Gemini, and Agents in Copilot. Can you clarify how that's different than using more than one specialized customized bot creator? Do these tools also help you integrate the bots into your like LMS system,
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah, yeah,
example?
yeah. Let's go back here to this one, and I'll just talk a couple of the three along the top. So all three of these ones along the top are designed for education, right? Whereas any of the ones, well, the Noodle and Easy Generator are also whatever. The three along the top are designed for education. There's a couple of really important pieces to that were really important. One is a chat history, right? And also moderation. PlayLab has a really interesting way of helping you have like visibility into what your students are doing in the chatbot itself, right? Whereas in like a Copilot agent or a custom GPT, you have literally no way of understanding what people are saying back and forth, right? And if this is really important to you to make sure that they are saying the right things, not saying, I don't know, that students aren't talking to it about self-harm, right? These are really important reasons why you might want to contract with one of these ones along the top, right? Um, that's the biggest difference. There's a bunch of other tools around these that are just really interesting ways to help you organize your class. Like PlayLab, for example, one of the things that it does, there's a number of like questions you can ask at the beginning of your chat that will, and you can make them mandatory so that your students, you are really focusing what the students are going to be talking about. And it just really is a fantastic way of like building something that's for the classroom, right? And all of these have different tools like that. So while the custom GPTs and Copilot and the gems and everything all are interesting productivity tools, they're not designed for monitoring a class. Does that answer the question? And do you have any other thoughts, questions about that?
No, that's great. That answered that question. Our next question says, do students need a free or paid account for PlayLab for them to be able to access the chatbots?
So at Tufts, we have paid for author licenses for our faculty. That was very important for us. And with that, you could create um, a tool, a link, a public link that can be used, and students do not need a local account. As of this week, PlayLab has released an LTI, so that's connected to Canvas, so students will be identified when they are in the that chat history that I was talking about. So up until now, everything was anonymous. You can still keep things anonymous with a public link. Some of our faculty are actually much more interested in leaving this as a private space, right? When you're talking to the chatbot. But the many others were sad that we couldn't identify students in those chatbots. So the LTI automatically creates student accounts. It's okay. PlayLab is a startup. I can't speak to any of the other ones on here for how their account management works.
Yeah, that was the next question that came up, actually, if you could refer to whether these are free or paid versions, specifically because they need to know if it needs to be institutionally driven or if this is something that faculty can do on their own.
So at Tufts, our policy is that faculty shouldn't be doing this on their own, and that's why we contracted with a group. I know that's not what many of the faculty on the line want to hear, but yeah, you should definitely talk. So if you're interested in any of these, you should go and talk to them on your own. PlayLab has a really awesome community for faculty to kind of get up to speed and start using their product. I love them. On Micro, again, that's John Swope's company, a familiar face to many of us here. There's some really awesome tools for like guiding the student experience and like this multi-step process with On Micro. I definitely recommend you talk to him. And then Boodlebox is it's another company. I have a free account with them right now. I don't actually know what the sharing ability with that would be with my students if I was a faculty member. But again, if it's a free account, they're stealing your data, right? They're using your data for training. I'll say that in the most charitable way possible. Any other thoughts, questions at this point? Yeah.
Justin, I'll just share. I put it in the chat that this question of platforms, I'm not surprised. Yeah, you're getting so much about it because it comes to practically doing it on campus. And yeah, this question was one of the motivations for founding this group. And that's how we got started with taking notes. And it changes by the moment. Doug shared an update there, and I shared about Hugging Chat. So if you want to share what you've tried and practice, yeah, please add your own notes to that document, because even though it seems overwhelming and it keeps changing, well, at least we got this community to swap notes. Back to you, Justin.
Okay. Any other questions for now, or
No, I think we're all caught up.
Awesome. Okay, cool. All right. We're going to move ahead. We talked about this. We're talking about a couple different use cases. We talked about the TA bot, super popular. That one was probably our most, we had the most concerns about that one because it's giving right or wrong answers to students, right? Simulation and role play, we were very excited about this. A number of faculty did something like this, where the bot takes on the role of, say, a patient, where they're going to take the patient history. That's what this one is. Or also they're the client, right? Or another one was they were like someone from the UN who was skeptical of climate change, and you were supposed to sell them on like explain to them and get them to commit to changing something about climate change. All interesting ways you can use these bots to role play specific scenarios, helping students like get in the mind of, when they're out there in the real world, right? And then the other one that was very popular and we were very excited about was things like feedback, right? Students upload their writing, they talk to them about their thinking, and it just suggests things to think about, right? It doesn't tell them you're getting, this is an A paper, but it lists, based on the frameworks that the faculty have uploaded, the certain things that they may want to include or expand upon, right? Am I doing on time? Pretty good. So here's the good news, right? You don't need to know what you're doing here. These tools are really easy to create. They're really easy to spin up. And no one knows what the best use of any of these tools are, right? The point of this program was so that we were all going to do it together, think deeply about what the next steps were, and then help, bring our students in, get feedback from them, right? And this is the important part over here. First, thinking about testing and iteration, really getting faculty to understand that these are not like most of the other tools that we use on our computer that are predictable, right? We need to do a lot of testing, helping also getting lots of people involved in that testing process, and then iterating a lot on making your bot better and better. And that all happens before we even put this in front of students, right? And then also crafting your AI policy. We're going to talk a little bit more about this, but basically, how do you talk to your students about how they're going to use this? Because that's very important. They may have a lot of ideas about what AI is, what it can do, and you want to help them understand the ways in which you have designed your experience so that they can get the most out of it. And then lastly here, understanding if these were successful or not. And normally, if you think about when I run a pilot at the university, I have a really good idea of what faculty want to do with it, what their learning goals are, because this tool meets specific learning goals. And then I can ask students, did it work? Did it not work? I can see based on their interactions what was going on, right? And I can judge pretty well whether or not this was a successful tool or not. That's not true here. If you just think about the previous slide, the questions I might ask a student or the ways in which it might have helped faculty or not are just wildly different in all of those different use cases, and even different bots within one of those use cases. It's just very difficult. So the faculty each individually crafted what they felt would make their bot a success, and then they created instruments, testing metrics, ways to evaluate that, and we're going to share that with each other in a couple weeks. So one of the things we just talked about, I almost forgot. So then, right, and we're gathering all of this from each individual faculty member. They're not just doing this on their own. We're not just suggesting that they do this, but they're putting this together, writing it up, and we put in a discussion board. There was a little bit of back and forth, and some people talking with each other about it, but mostly it was there to gather evidence for future development, right? So that when we run this in the future, I can say, well, other people have had success doing this. We've had difficulties when people did X, right? Yeah, that's the whole point of gathering all this.
We do have one more question in the chat.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's specifically, I am curious if chemistry faculty at Tufts uses custom chatbots in their courses or any other platforms listed. I ask this because there are some aspects of chemistry content that use generic LLMs, and they are not really great at that yet.
So nobody in the pilot was a chemistry teacher, but if we're talking, right, we have the neurology course TA here, and I'm assuming that's kind of what you're thinking about, like students asking questions. I'm confused about X, right? I don't think that chemistry is any more or less specific than neurology for medical school students, right? And this faculty, and we've also had folks at our dental school, other folks like that doing stuff. And because you upload a lot of your own curricular materials, the bot hew very closely. I'm not going to say never say the wrong things, right? Because that's it's hard to know exactly how often they are still giving out misinformation. Right? This is still something this is part of our evaluation, right? Which we're going to get to soon here. But so yeah, I think that's what you want. And you want something also, if you pay for the tool, you're going to get a lot more space for that knowledge base, the uploaded documents, right? For the neurology course, what they used was the syllabus. And if you're thinking of a normal undergraduate syllabus, it's not like that in the medical school. It's literally like a textbook. It's 100 pages with chapters for each lecture with a narrative explaining like what's going on in each one. For like, say, at our dental school, where they have abandoned that kind of health sciences syllabus, what they used was the transcripts. All of the transcripts from last year's course, they uploaded that because we found PowerPoints were just not of rich enough text. There just wasn't enough there for the bots to really respond to. But all of the transcripts, there's a lot of text there that the bots can work with to find the information that the students are asking about and then recontextualize that in the way that makes sense for the students, right?
Wonderful, thank you. Last question. You mentioned saving faculty time. It might be premature, but did those bots genuinely lighten faculty workload, or did they free up time that faculty then had to spend on additional tasks, essentially the same amount of work redistributed?
Yeah. So this faculty member right here, one of the things here that was very, very interesting is the night before the final, right, from midnight until when the final happened, there was 24 chats with the bot, and we kind of just are assuming that those would have in the past been an email, and he literally would stay up late in the past to answer those emails and then wake up early to answer those questions before the final exam, right? And I'm jumping the gun here on this a little bit, but like one of the things that we found with this particular one is that, and I talk a lot with my hands, and Zoom often thinks I'm raising my hand, but so it saved him time in that way, right? There were I can't remember if we said none or almost none of those panicked emails, but also none of the neurology students failed the final exam, which has never been true in the past. I'm not saying that the TA bot ensured that all of his students passed, but it's a pretty good indication that it did not do harm with the amount of interactions we had. So anecdotally, yes, we do see that something like the TA bot was both very popular and also helpful for faculty to save them some time. I'm not going to go through all of these questions because I want to get to hear what you guys have to say too. So, but we asked them a whole bunch of questions. Like the most important one, the most obvious one to kind of think about here is, how do your students deal with errors when they come up, right? One of the questions, like the first question, like the aha question that really helped faculty understand what we were talking about here is, what if the students get the wrong answer from your bot and then they answer that on the test? They get it wrong on the final because the product that you gave them told them the wrong thing, right? And most of them were like, well, they should get it wrong, right? Obviously, I agree, they should get it wrong. But then we need to have, that's a conversation we need to have with our students before they start messing with this, so they understand the kinds of pitfalls that we're going, right? And there's a whole bunch of different policy concerns that we need to think through and then have those both in writing and talk to our students about before we put it in front of them, right? Yeah, it's all here.
I got a couple more questions. Did you want to wait or okay. Sorry,
yeah,
I hate to keep interrupting, but I didn't know if you wanted to keep
going. There's a lot going on here. I totally understand.
Would you like to wait? We can wait if you want to.
Yeah, let's wait at this point so we can, we don't have too much more to get to, but other folks might be interested in the actual faculty development like process. So we'll get to that. We'll have plenty of time. So hold the questions for now. So how are faculty judging success, right? That's a very important question. And the truth is, like the 90%, I should have made this like a word cloud, which was the biggest, is faculty student surveys, right? Either adding it to the course evaluations or just asking students in formal surveys, was it useful? Did they like it? Did they trust it? How do they feel about it, right? But there's plenty of other things that faculty are also doing, like analyzing the assignments, right? These are often, many of them are part, like if it was a feedback tool, like, well, does the faculty feel that this raised the level of work? Well, that's an important metric, right? Also, we asked a lot of faculty asked student for reflections on like, well, just to get a narrative, like in your own words, how was it to talk to these things, right? Then also there's a lot of usage statistics, including the chat history. And there's some interesting ways we can use AI to potentially kind of get sentiment analysis of that chat history, which was pretty fun and interesting. And there's also just quantitative results, right? These are not, we can't compare, like I talked about before, the final grades. We can't say, oh, they did 2 points better this year than last year, right? There's way too many factors to think about something like that. But there are plenty of ways, like saying nobody failed the final this year. Those kind of really hard metrics that we can point to were really, really we encourage people to look for those things and see what we could do there as well. So then, like I said, we did this as a community of practice, right? This started way, oh wait, now I'm getting ahead of myself. Basically, we met about once a month, right? There's a little bit of every session kind of looked like this over here. We started off with some AI skills acquisition, like, hey, this is the best way to prompt. These are the best ways to organize your materials, stuff like that. And then we kind of framed the discussion for them, getting them to talk about certain things. And then they would talk to each other. We put them into breakout rooms and they would just kind of talk to each other. And then we would kind of report back, hearing what they're concerned about, what they came up with as solutions to a lot of the, stuff we framed to them as like, you should think about this. What are you going to do about that? Well, they came back and they talked about it. So then each one of these was more or less a month. So this started all the way back in April. We did that overview session that I talked about. And then in April as well, we did the proposals, where we did actually end up working with probably half of them, a little less than half of them, to recraft their proposals to fit within what we thought was a good idea for a chatbot. And then they also had to promise, they had to pinky swear that they would share all their, all the stuff we've been talking about with us. And then we had a intro to PlayLab and generative AI, like that was run by PlayLab themselves. They run a PLC, even just I was about to say, well, I know they used to allow people on the free account to join those. It's really, really good if you're just interested in learning about PlayLab and how to create these. It's really awesome. And then we just talked about a lot of this different stuff we've been going through so far, right? Basically, how to iterate and refine your apps as you're going along. And then we talked to each other about syllabus language. And then we got into how do you, the faculty, define student success, and how are you going to then build tools to measure that, right? And then we found about this point, this was last month, October, folks had just really dropped off, right? It had been a long journey. People were in the middle of their semester. So we decided to switch this. It wasn't a community practice. We did it asynchronously. So they formally wrote out what their data gathering practices were, and then we shared it with each other just in an email, right? And actually, faculty really liked that, which I was worried they would hate it or not participate, but they did. And then starting next Friday, and then again a couple of times in December after the holiday, we're gonna have faculty present on all of this stuff. So I've had some feedback already on how these things did, but that's going to be the real time when they share the success or failure or best practices, all that stuff. All right, wow, I'm very much back on track as far as time. Cool. So that was awesome, but there was a huge problem with it. That previous community practice that we did is that it took up a huge amount of time, both for me and my team and also for the faculty, especially, many of the faculty that were the early adopters, they were already pretty skilled up on AI, and other ones, literally there were two folks, both of which are actually going to have a successful project, knock on wood. They're going to complete the whole thing. They, their understanding of AI was like, what do you mean I chat with it? It's like, you just type into the little box questions and it answers you. It's like, what do you mean question? What do you mean? Yeah. So that's where they were. So there was a huge range of folks, and kind of figuring out how to meet all those folks was really difficult. So we're thinking about a new way of doing this. For one, also because, 17 projects is cool, but we want to have like digital transformation across the campus, right? So how do we scale this? And a lot of it is we're thinking about doing ways of making this much more asynchronous and leveraging AI to help us interact with folks, right? So we're still thinking about a bunch of synchronous sessions, far fewer, but still definitely that orientation and that proposal process that we talked about before. I don't know what I put in 4 design sessions. We're working on this as a proposal from me as well. All of us are figuring this out. And then we still want to do that final presentation, bringing everyone together to have a final presentation. And right now we're doing it just with the online, just with the folks that were in the community of practice, just kind of a very low-key sharing of our results. But what I'm trying to propose for the spring, and the folks in the fall would be invited to this too, but we have a yearly a university-wide teaching conference where faculty are able to present. I would love everyone who has a successful bot to be able to present there. It just really helps faculty have recognition of the hard work that they've been doing, and then also visibility by their higher ups, because faculty are that's important to them, right? Yeah, and then, a bunch of asynchronous ways of gathering this data. We talked about leveraging AI. We're going to use some of the feedback and best practices from here to create a knowledge base for a number of bots for the future. And then also, some office hours meetups. Who knows what we're going to call them, but yeah. Okay, so this is the last slide. So this is like, if you guys are interested in thinking about how some of these work, you can use these QR codes right here. But at this point, yeah, we're gonna open it up to questions, thoughts. Yeah, happy to hear what anyone else is doing.
I've got several questions in the chat. At this point, would you like people to ask their own questions, or do you want me to continue to moderate?
How about, or Justin, what do you think if anyone wants to ask it on the microphone so we get to hear voices?
That's always nice, but yeah, I don't want to have anybody. Yeah, Kim, go ahead.
I'll make it really quick. I just was hoping to see the bots in action. Do you have any screenshots or anything to share in that regard, please? Thank you.
Yeah, well, that's excellent. So you can use any of these QR codes right here to actually play with one yourself. Any of these that sound interesting to you, go ahead and use that QR code, and you can see what how they interact with students.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anyone else wants to ask a question live? I don't know if there's also an interest in seeing behind the scenes, and if there's any time for that, Justin, or you'd be willing to lift up the hood for any one of these.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's not exactly a product demo, but like, absolutely, if anybody wants to see what PlayLab looks like and how that differs from some of the other ones you might be used to. But yeah, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I asked a bunch of questions in the chat, but my question for you would be, what about like RAG and the difference between these different tools? Because I found that the nice thing about the University of Minnesota is using, Google Gemini Gems, and ChatGPT has that ability to upload knowledge files as well. And I found in my own experience last fall using a ChatGPT like Socratic tutor, that's essential for any educational use. Is that something that at Tufts you guys are focusing on and helping faculty understand how to best use RAG?
Yeah, we don't talk about RAG, but yes, because like the actual technical definition is not that exciting. But yes, there is here. Well, people want to see what the inside looks like, so let's show you guys. Okay, cool. So this is a bot that I created for faculty to help them think through those policy questions that we talked about before. And then at the end, it asks them a number of questions. And then at the end, it creates suggested syllabus language that they can then go ahead and use. We'll talk more about their response to that in a second because it's quite fascinating. But this is the Play Lab. Get this out of here. Build environment. I'm going to talk about this in a second. But first, we're just going to talk, just in case anybody has questions, this is what it looks like to interact with it as a student, in this case, or a user. The users in this case were faculty, right? These are the questions. Remember, I asked, like I told you, it's not, it never works live when you want it to. Anyway, what's going on? Let's just refresh that. Usually this is a completely interactive version of it, but interesting. This is the same thing. Anyway, there's a this is like a preview window of the exact same thing. This is what a student would kind of be able to see, right? So remember I talked about those questions that you could ask, right? So they ask like, well, how will your students interact with it? So these are framing questions. You can upload your syllabus so that it talks like you talk, right? And then also ask for your name and don't worry about this for now. And then you just say start. That's my name. And then you just talk to it, right? So you get that, hopefully. So then the question was around references. So PlayLab has a couple of really great tools around uploading knowledge base and references. One, it allows quite a large amount of information to be uploaded. You can even upload websites. The websites are static. It takes like a screenshot, like it downloads the website at that moment when you upload it. It's not a live website. But the really cool thing is, let's just say, remember I talked about that dental school TA bot, right? They uploaded every single PowerPoint and transcript for the whole semester, but then they had their syllabus themselves, and that they were able to use to pin. And basically what the pin means is that this is like high priority. It says every time, right? It used RAG to like kind of find the most important parts in all of the rest of it. And also then it would definitely always upload that piece of information, whatever is pinned, and give that to the LLM when generating its responses. So that's another interesting thing about PlayLab. That's a tool I haven't seen in any other bot creator. I'm sure others do it as well. I just haven't seen it. What else is interesting? So here, right, these are all the different models, and a lot of the other chatbot tools have this ability to add lots of different models. Yeah. Go ahead, Michael. And I'll be seeing you later today as well. I don't know if you recognize my name, but yeah.
Yeah, I really like PlayLab. The ability to remix other people's chatbots is very cool. But my question was on the LTI.
Mm-hmm.
In what type of deployments are allowed in Canvas through the LTI? Is it like just assignments or and do you get an embed code? Because I see like on your screen there is an embed code available.
So there's a couple different answers. First, on the embed code, you must be a paid member. You might have to be an institutional member. There's some level, if you're a free user, you don't get the embed code. That's the only thing I know there. So we have that. We'd have used that. It works great. The LTI is brand new and it works okay. All of these tools are like startups, so it is not, I don't love the way they implemented the LTI, and I've given them this feedback as well, so this is nothing, I'm not talking behind their back in any way, but they implemented it as an assignment. But there is no grading features within PlayLab, right? Some of the other tools, like Boodlebox, I know that one has some grading features. The On Micro has some grading features, right? So putting it in an assignment might be more useful there, but there's no speed grader integration. There's no AI grading in PlayLab. So there's some creative ways you have to set up the assignment so that it's like not part of your grade book, even though it is an assignment in Canvas. But they're working on it. I have full faith that they're going to continue working on both a assignment integration, right? Integrating it into SpeedGrader is something that they have said is on their roadmap, and also better embedding tools. And they're always doing stuff, right? Like there's a bunch of tools that they're releasing just literally in the next 2 months. Well, that they've promised to release in the next 2 months, which are really, really cool.
Thank you.
So then a couple other interesting things about PlayLab is if your students are identified, which for Tufts we needed the LTI for, or if you have different feelings about this, you could require your students to create free accounts on PlayLab. We did not allow that, but you might. There's a memory feature, so remembers, and you even tell the bot what to remember about your students, so that, like, say if it's again a feedback bot, and you can say, like, I remember last time you struggled with this framework, whatever, this when you were uploading stuff. How is that going, right? It can ask, can remember what you tell it to remember, right? Not just like ChatGPT, just remember stuff, right? An assistant, this really is just an AI to help you build your bots. That's cool. Commenting is for collaborating. That's cool. Are any of these things like the inputs? Those are the questions I talked about. What's here on settings? Anything interesting here? No, it's all, yeah. This is if you are thinking about using a tool with your students, as far as I am concerned, this is mandatory. You may feel differently, that's fine. But this is a way, and I'm not going to click on this because these are faculty and these are their actual interactions. So I'm not going to click on it. But if you, well, I can click on my own. That's me right there. Oh, sorry. I didn't realize I was testing out the moderation features. This is also me, so that's fine. Just doing normal testing. But you can see here, remember I was talking about those automated moderation features? Well, this little red flag here, I was saying some inappropriate things to my bot to test out how the moderation feature would work. I got an email about this because my student, Justin, me, obviously, was saying some weird stuff. So that's very cool, especially when we're thinking about students and how they may interact with these in ways that are outside of what we originally envisioned them using, right? Maybe they start talking about personal things, asking for career advice, talking about self-harm, right? Those kinds of things. It's good to have a history. I don't know if all of those would be moderated, but yeah, you get it. Yeah, so this is the history. And you can do a bunch of stuff with it. Cool. Oh, I didn't mean to go back to the. Anyway, yeah, any other thoughts, questions? So that's your dime tour of PlayLab.
Hi, I have a question.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering with this PlayLab, since there's a lot of critique about general LLMs not necessarily being trained in the psychology of learning and all those things. For apps like this, like adding that to your bot, is it enough to just add like PDFs about like certain learning strategies and so forth so that it does better in those interactions, or does it need something more advanced to address those concerns in other LLMs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So probably if you have an idea of how you want it to interact with your students, like say you want to support inquiry-based learning, right? Just uploading a bunch of documents about every kind of framework around inquiry-based learning is probably not the way to go. You're just going to confuse it. It's not going to, you want to focus these on very specific things. And then also in your, let me open this back up. Where did it go? Here, in your custom instructions here, you're going to want to talk about how it should support inquiry-based learning. Literally, like you can see here, I even have like quotations amount. I say, then you should ask this. Then you should ask that, right? And then it drafts those syllabus policies, right? So, and this is where the iteration is going to come in as well, right? You should first start playing with it over here, asking it the kinds of questions you want students to ask. And then you graduate to, well, ask it the things that you're like, the weird stuff that a student might ask, well, and see how it responds to that. Then send it to your TAs, send it to somebody else in your department and ask them to interact with it in the way they think a student might and get feedback there, right? Because writing this up and uploading some stuff, it doesn't take long. This takes forever, right? Because you chat with it a couple times, like, yeah, this is good, but that's not good enough, right? You need to push the edges to see where it's going to first say something crazy, right? That we want to avoid that as close to 100% as possible. But then also, if students start going off the rails, we want to have ways like give it language and give it instructions to bring them back to the kinds of things that you want them to be talking about, right? So is it better? Yes. Is it 100%? No. But what that percentage is, though, and on what tasks it's closer to 100% or not, and what custom instructions facilitate us getting higher to 100%, that's still, I think everybody here who's played with these knows where it's a work in progress, right? And they're always changing, right? Their capabilities are changing. The products are changing. So
Justin, yeah, we have about 10 minutes left. This is such a lively audience and participants and so many questions. Yeah, we won't get to everything. I wonder, Justin, if you want to take a quick look at what's left in the Q&A and maybe just take one more or so to
sure.
and then I have a final question. And if anyone has to go or ask you go, yes, please fill out our exit ticket. It really everything we do in this showcase is because of feedback from the past, and we keep shaping it together. I also added this new question today, inspired by another group she leads AI, where if you really appreciated Justin's presentation and all his insights, you can do a testimonial, optional, of course, with your name, and Justin can use that for his portfolio. Because yes, to clarify, none of this is sponsored. Everyone who presents is a labor of love. So yeah, if you appreciate his work, please include that in the exit ticket form.
Yeah, and I'm happy to talk more about this too. As you can see, it's hard for me to shut up about this. So
This
my
was like a
contact,
master class. Sorry, Justin. This was a master class on custom bots.
yeah,
Seriously.
thanks. Awesome. I'm glad everyone's getting something out of this. But yeah, if you want to talk more about this, my contact information is in the top of the presentation which we shared. If you're thinking about doing this, especially this kind of faculty development at scale, I would love to help you do it because I would love to hear back how it goes for you. But yeah, I don't see any other burning questions. Cassandra, do you want to ask?
Doug,
Oh
maybe
yeah,
Doug,
Doug, go ahead, Doug.
also a long member with us. Yep.
Hey, yeah, we actually just tested out a PlayLab math tutor in calculus and pre-calculus, and it was pretty cool. But one limitation we've run into, not just with PlayLab, but also with custom GPT or GEMS, is STEM courses and math. There's a lot of visual stuff, diagrams, charts, chemical diagrams, and these. It's mostly text-based, and
Yeah.
I know that PlayLab has a chart tool, and I tested it out. It was okay. It wasn't quite good. I didn't know if you've run across this kind of limitation or any alternate solutions. I know technically the correct way to create like a chart would be to first have it generate data and then have it generate, like in ChatGPT or whatever, have it generate a JavaScript program that plots the data, but that's also kind of clunky to use for a student tutor app. Just didn't know if you had any thoughts or seen any alternate ideas for that.
For creating, well, either one, no. They're not good at reading images, certainly not making meaning from the images. They can read the like text on there now, and they'll do a good job of like, that's the Eiffel Tower, that's a beer can, right? But it's not going to make meaning out of a diagram that you've posted for your students, right? And the same thing for it producing images, right? They're fine if you want a picture, again, of the Eiffel Tower or, something that's really well represented in its database, but like creating an educational image that is like conveys deep meaning, that they're nowhere close. They can't even label the chambers of the heart correctly, right? So, yeah, image generation and analysis, or even and chart, same thing. It's just like not even close.
And just to mention to others, this isn't really a solution to this issue, but I was really impressed by the demo. It's maybe, a year from now we'll have, there's this digital whiteboard tool called TL Draw. It's free and open source, but they've now integrated AI agents with it. So this AI agent it still is flawed, like you say, but it can understand what's on the whiteboard and it can interact with the whiteboard and draw stuff. So like, the demo, there was a YouTube video, I forget the link, but I just tried it again right now, where you can ask it to like generate a worksheet or generate a problem, a visual problem, and then the student could draw and answer, and then it could write on the whiteboard feedback. So really cool demo. It's not really ready for prime time or the solution to my issue, but it's just a cool development that I was impressed by. So
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Like I just like using something like that as an AI literacy tool, like in addition to thinking about whatever your content is really interesting too. Like it reminds me of one of the bots similar to this, was that what it did was ask the students what they were interested in around fluid dynamics, and then what their like passion project, like a passion of theirs was. And then it would create a word problem about those two things. And then for one of the students, it generated, how would you create a nuclear powered violin? So like, it's just like a very like aha moment for all of us. It was like, oh, right. It's just remixing stuff, right? So it's, I don't know, interesting.
mhm. Thanks.
Yeah. You want to
Okay.
put the
Yeah.
link to that tool in the chat? I would love to grab it. Go ahead, Cassandra, please.
Oh, yeah. And I like you still have your hands up.
Yeah,
That's the
I
AI,
can't.
right?
It's too hard to
Yeah.
it's just gonna come back up again as I'm like talking, gesturing wildly.
Yeah, I'm like that
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
So my question for you, as we are rounding out the year incredibly and looking to the future, what is one thing that you're especially excited about doing in the coming year? Maybe something you haven't done yet, like a hope or aspiration for where this work is going with faculty.
Yeah. I think, I mean, what I'm focused on right now is doing this again. And I don't know if you even have funding for this, but like, I want to do this with 50 faculty in the spring, right? I know it's already mid-November, but how can we do this at scale? Because one of the things, I didn't even get to talk about this, but one of the most interesting findings for me and the other folks on the educational technology team was the huge skill up and better understanding of what an AI really is, what these LLMs really are for faculty, right? And that's a huge, like, we need our faculty to better understand what these things are so they can understand how they affect their discipline, and then that they can pass that on to their students, right? And many of them now are just like stuck in what they read on the New York Times and hear on NPR about how wacky these things are and how like different, and how they're, one, going to replace everyone, and two, they can't do anything, right? Like, so that's what I'm excited for, about the opportunity for faculty to really have to dig into this. And this opportunity really helps them like see where the rubber meets the road. So there you go. That's why I'm excited.
Awesome, Justin. And with those words, we will wrap it for today. Thank you, Justin Horvath, so much for sharing all this with us. Thank you, Shannon Scandozza, for facilitating and co-hosting with the chat and all the questions. Thank you all. You're just all amazing, and keep building, keep tinkering, and I hope to see you at the next one. Information in the meeting notes.
Yeah. And again, reach out if you have any thoughts, questions. I'd love to talk about this stuff. So please, thanks everybody. I really appreciate your time.